Oh, you hear this noisy little critter that I'm standing next to right here? This is called a hybrid water heater. It's not really new technology. It's been out for a few years. And my good friend Jim up in Maine, who goes by the name of Peaceful Prepper, he's the one that turned me on to these things probably 3 years ago. And I've always been fascinated with it, interested in it, and now I have one, and I'm going to do a full review on both the A.O. Smith, which is the brand this is that Lowe's carries, and my thoughts on hybrid water heaters in general. And I think this is a video you will want to watch. Today I'm going to be installing this A.O. Smith hybrid water heater that I bought from Lowe's. This is the 50-gallon unit. Had been contemplating getting one from Home Depot. Their 50-gallon unit was like $1,700. This one at Lowe's was $899. So I went ahead and opted to get this one, and it has pretty good reviews. The hybrid water heater, what it does is it has a Freon compressor in the top, this black can on top of regular, or what was basically a regular water heater. And the compressor pumps Freon through the system, and the coils that get hot are actually in the water, and that heats the water. The coils that produce the cool air are exhausted out of this top cabinet. So basically that'll help dehumidify the house. It'll help cool it somewhat. In the winter that might not be such a good thing. Everybody says the winters do get cool in the mornings. But I'm going to hook this up and run the water through it and see how it goes. Okay, so I just crimped the inlet, which is for the cold water, and the cold water inlet, unlike conventional water heaters, is not in the top like they were in the older units where you'd have the hot and cold water both at the top. The hybrid units, the cold water inlet is at the bottom, the hot water outlet is at the top. And then there's a condensate line in the back here that's also a 3/4 inch connector that we're going to use. My intention for that is to use the condensate water that comes out of that to water the batteries with. So it's basically just going to pull the moisture out of the air, and I think that's I'm hoping that's a high quality water that it gets, because it's basically distilled water. It's just the moisture in the air, and it's condensated, and it'll run out that, and then I'm going to capture that condensate and hopefully use that to water my batteries with. Alright, I've got the PEX fitting on for the hot water outlet. Now I'm going to go into the house and hook all that up right quick. Okay, so I've got this pipe here in my right hand. That's the output of the pressure tank. It goes in, up the water heater, and into that cold outlet, or cold inlet rather. This will be the hot water from the tank. And I'm going to use this to supply the spigot in the kitchen and in the shower out here, so we can always have nice hot showers regardless of the weather. all of the connections under the house made for the hot water. The only thing that I still need to hook up is the hot water connection to the water heater. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll turn the not the well pump, the cistern pump, pressure pump, and it'll start pressurizing the tank and filling the water heater. Now I know I'm leaving a lot of slack in this pipe. I'm doing that intentionally because that way I'll just cut this to whatever length and then I don't end up wasting my crimp sleeve. Alright, now I'm going to wire up the water heater temporarily to a breaker, and then we'll turn on the power. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the pump and start filling it up. So it does have a grounding screw. Okay, now I'm going to pull the camera a little closer so we can all see what our little display thingy says here when the power comes on. So this is the digital readout here, and then this says efficiency, hybrid, electric, and vacation. So I'm going to try to immediately put it into efficiency. Alright. Now it did tell me that it goes through about an 8-minute self-test thing. So we're going to let it do that. I'm going to go use the restroom. If anything blows up while I'm gone, let me know, would you? I do hear a lot of clicking going on in here. Well, not a lot, but there's some clicking going on. And so far the inverter shows the load is 50 watts. Voltage is hanging out around 61 volts on the batteries. And the load still says it's right around 100 watts. Hearing some ticking, almost sounds like a timer or something. When I brought this thing home yesterday, I brought it home in a rainstorm, brought it on its back side. The box said don't transport it on its side. So I didn't transport it on its side or its face, I transported it on its back. Now what I did do here is when I got it off the trailer, I found that the owner's manual had slipped out of the pocket and got completely soaked. And a lot of the pages are stuck together, so I'm kind of trying to keep it all loosened. So I think that there might be a schedule I can run on this thing. I'm going to try to dig that up and see if I can find it. Sounds of that. 120 I believe is probably the water temperature. And that says it's degrees Fahrenheit. I believe that completes the installation phase. But I'm not hearing a compressor running, although the air coming out of it does feel pretty cool. There it goes. I heard it kick on. That's the sound, I hope, of a good, happy hybrid water heater. Alright, I've got some awesome news here. This thing is pulling 300 watts. And that's about max. Occasionally it shows 330 watts. So I know it's no more than 300 watts because I got the laptop running plus a couple of lights. So no more than 300 watts is what this thing is consuming to make hot water right now. And am I happy? Let me tell you if I'm happy. I'm happy. To get hot water, that's just pretty dang awesome, y'all. 300 watts of this making hot water. If this was running in electric mode, this thing would be pulling 4,500 watts. Over 10 times as much, about 14 times as much electricity. Now the thing that I'm kind of curious about is how long it'll take to get the water up to temperature. Wow. That's all I can say. Wow. Pulling 4 kilowatts. It's set up for efficiency mode. Right now I'm pulling 4.5 kilowatts. That tells me there's an element on. Alright, so the solar panels are making 1.5 kilowatts. One thing I noticed is whenever I went to vacation mode and then came back from vacation mode, even though I had it in efficiency, it turned on that heating element and it was pulling 4.5 kilowatts. So now I gotta do the 8-minute cycle thing again. But at least I know that now. If I put it in vacation mode when I get back from vacation, I've got to just turn the breaker off. Actually, I just need to turn the breaker off when I go to vacation. It doesn't freeze here, so there's no point in keeping the water at 60 degrees. So, anyway, I'm pretty dang happy with this thing. I'll come back in a little bit and we'll see how hot the water is. That's the condensation it's pulling out of here. That is a lot of water. And it feels good, kind of like a little air conditioner. I like it. Alright, I just had a shower from the water heated by this unit. Probably took 3, maybe 4 hours for it to heat up close to 120, but not quite. But I did have a very comfortable shower. I took a nice long shower and it was wonderful. Now, one thing that I've got to say about these A.O. Smith's units is that apparently if the water is really cold in the tank or it's not coming up to the temperature as quick as it thinks it should, it goes ahead and turns on those resistive heating elements. even though I've got it on the efficiency setting. I don't have my reading glasses on. But even though I had it on the efficiency setting, it still kicked on those heating elements. And man, them cockroaches pull 4,500 watts, and that's just 500 watts less than what that inverter will put out continuously. So what I did was I disconnected the upper element on this thing, which is what it wants to kick on. And now I'm getting this error code that says EUC. And that's element upper, but anyway, upper element error or something or other like that. So it detects that I disconnected that heating element. Now what I found out is if I cut power to this and restore the power, it will not turn on. It won't operate at all unless I reconnect that unit. So what I did do this time was I allowed it to start, and then while the heat pump portion of it was running, I disconnected the heating element. Don't try this at home because you probably electrocute yourself if you're not some really cool, brilliant, wise fellow. And I'm not very wise because I did it. But anyway, it's not, I mean, if we could just find a way to just make it run strictly on the heat pump, even when you tell it to, because even though I told it to run just on the heat pump, it still kicked on those elements. And I know it was just wanting to get that temperature up. So, you know, I think that these hybrid water heaters have opened a whole new door into heating water, because in Colorado I used a standard element water heater and I used it as a load dump. Well, now that's not necessary. It's been cloudy and rainy here all day, and I've got hot water, and it only took 300 watts for 3-4 hours, but I got hot water on a cloudy day, and that is pretty doggone awesome. So Momma D and I have been talking recently about maybe getting an electric car. We're specifically looking at the Nissan Leaf. I know there's the Chevy Volt, which was the older electric car. Now there's the Chevy Bolt. There's the, I think it's a Kia Soul you can get that's all electric. There's the Miev that's made by Mitsubishi. We've really dug into a lot of those. But now that I've got this energy that's available, that I don't have to try to concentrate on hot water anymore, this is going to be just an appliance that will run during the day. So regardless of what the electrical situation is, we'll always have hot water. I'm really excited about this. So our next step is going to be an electric vehicle. Hawaii is a pretty small island, even though we're on the big island. Only takes about 2 hours to drive from one side of the island to the other, which is about 100 miles, and that's about the range of an electric car. Now I understand if I drove to the other side of the island, I don't have a way to get back because I'd need to charge the batteries. But the point being, we could still drive to town and back. They have the free charging stations at Target, Home Depot, the airport. So, you know, the more major places that we go, we can plug in a charge while we're in town shopping. And then when we come back and we have a full sunny day, the car will be charged up in 4 hours. So I'm really excited about the future here. I feel crisp and clean. Or is it fresh and clean? Something like that. But anyway, I feel really good. I'm excited about this. Okay, so I've had this water heater for probably 6 days, 5 days, something like that. So, you know, I've kind of put it through different paces and messed around with it a little bit. I found the optimum water temperature for me is 125. That way when I take a shower, I have to add a little bit of cold, makes the hot water last a little bit longer. But my overall impression with water heaters that are hybrids in general, man, everybody ought to have one. I wish that they would get the technology so that the price on them would come down. My thinking is a regular element hot water heater runs around $300-400, and you can buy a window air conditioner for $200. That means that these should run $600 at the most. The thing that really impresses me with this more than anything is the fact that it uses right around 300 watts when it's actually in conservation mode, or whatever it is, not conservation, but I forget what it's called, but it's where it uses the least amount. 300 watts. That's just a little bit more than the average refrigerator. Now, the refrigerator is going to cut on and off throughout the day. You know, it's a compressor, takes and puts cold inside the refrigerator and puts warm inside the room. That's where the heat exchange takes place. Well, in the water heater, it's the opposite. It takes cool and puts that into the room, and takes the heat and puts that into the water. So, you know, it uses pretty much the same amount of electricity as a refrigerator when it's running. But the thing is this hybrid water heater that I've got is a 50-gallon water heater, and it runs not even once a day. I would say it kicks on maybe once every 38 hours, somewhere around there. Now, granted, all I use the hot water for is taking a shower and washing the dishes. Don't have a washing machine or anything like that, so there's no clothes involved. Washing my face and my hands, that kind of stuff throughout the day. But, so, when it does kick on, it runs for about 45 minutes. 300 watts. We're talking maybe 200 watt hours that it uses a day. That makes it a fraction of what a refrigerator would consume. So the average off-grid home, if you're running a refrigerator and you've got the power that you think you could run another refrigerator, you can run this and not even notice it. Now, the A.O. Smith, what I don't like about it is it goes into this recovery mode, even if you're running it in high efficiency mode or conservation mode or whatever you call it. It'll still turn those heating elements on if you feed it cold water during its initial setup. So when I first filled it up, it kicked on with just the compressor running the Freon through it, and it worked really nice for a while. And then after it realized that the water wasn't at the temperature it wanted it to be by that time, it kicked on the heating elements. That's 4,500 watts. I disconnected one of the heating elements, and that threw it into an alarm, so it senses if a heating element's open. I'm going to try to order a 2 kilowatt heating element and put that in there and see what happens. It might say that something's wrong with that too, if it's actually measuring the resistance of what's there. So I'm not real fond of that feature that A.O. Smith has. And having said that, something that I would like to see these hybrid water heater manufacturers come out with is something that's more smaller, because people with motorhomes, campers, this kind of thing, I understand it uses a compressor and it needs to be pretty level and all that, but I think there's a lot more applications for this than just these huge monster houses where they want 120-gallon water heaters. You know, 50-gallon right now is the smallest they make. And the ones at Home Depot, I think it's like $1,400-1,500 for a 50-gallon water heater. And that's just too much money. It's not even right. Now, granted, it's got Wi-Fi interface, and you can set the water temperature when you're gone. If you forget to turn it off when you're on vacation, you can do that, but your internet has to be up. And if you go for a vacation, you might have your internet turned off. So now the one that I have that's A.O. Smith is from Lowe's, and I paid, I think it was $800 or $900. I think it's $900. and still in my book too much money. But then when I hooked it up, I was like, wow, it just sips electricity and it keeps that water nice and hot, and I just let it run when it wants to, just like a refrigerator. So it might kick on in the middle of the night and it kind of wakes me up, but then I go back to sleep. As far as the noise level, it's probably as noisy as a furnace in your house that is like central air conditioning or central heating, that has a blower in it. It's about that same noise level. So it's not bad, but I don't have any walls up in my house, so it sounds like it's right next to me. So the noise level is tolerable, but for the amount of energy it uses, it makes me smile every time I hear it kick on. So my thoughts on it: if you've got an electric water heater in your house, whether you're on grid or off grid, man, this is worth it. If you have always wanted to be more self-sufficient being off grid, this is definitely the way to go, because once you get past those heating elements, whenever you initially start it, then whenever you use the hot water, it's just the compressor that kicks on and it heats it back up. Awesome technology. I highly recommend it. I can't say enough good stuff about it. As far as longevity, I don't have anything to say about that, but 20 years, I might make a video and say it's crap. But right now, I'm in love with it, and I think you ought to check it out. It's definitely an investment that pays back.